The Civil War had ended, and the nation was in ruins. After being torn apart by secession and brought back together by Lee's surrender at Appomattox, it was up to Washington to decide how to deal with the unruly South. Reconstruction began with two crucial questions. How will the former Confederacy be punished, and how will the emancipated blacks be protected?
The radical Republicans' ultimate goal was to make the South suffer before readmitting them to the Union. They wanted to uproot their social system so any trace of the planter aristocracy would be gone, and punish Confederate leaders for their roles in the Civil War.
Two radicals, Benjamin Wade and Henry Davis, thought that Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction was too easy on the South.
My proposal includes the acceptance of the Ironclad Oath by a majority of the state's population in order to rejoin the United States. Former Confederate officials would not be granted amnesty, and in the state constitution, the abolition of slavery would have to be acknowledged. I believe a military governor should be temporarily installed in each state.
This led directly to the Reconstruction Act of 1867. The act borrowed ideas from both proposed plans. It placed former Confederate states under military authority while taking away the rights of Confederate officials. It required states to ratify the 14th Amendment, guaranteeing citizenship for freemen.
The 14th and 15th constitutional amendments were an integral part of the Reconstruction Plan. They bound the South to recognize African Americans' rights as freemen, citizens, and voters.
So, I'm Zwad Chalinsky, and I am a history expert. And whenever I think of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, I like to think of free citizens vote. It's a clever little trick I thought of to help remember these amendments. And I think a lot of people think of this and they know what these amendments mean because of my saying. So, the 13th Amendment, free, granted emancipation to all the slaves. The 14th Amendment said anyone who is born on U.S. soil is a citizen unless you're Native American. The 15th Amendment said if you are a citizen, you can vote unless you're a woman. That was the first time the Constitution specified that only males were included.
Wow, I just love America. How fabulous to finally recognize African Americans as people. Former slaves were thrilled for their newfound rights. But although these amendments protected the civil liberties of freed blacks, they were still disadvantaged. The only life they knew was one of slavery. Because these people had no way to provide for themselves, the radicals of the North took bold steps to ensure their basic needs were met.
Some of the radical Republicans influenced the creation of the Freedmen's Bureau to help unskilled, unlettered, and moneyless freedmen survive.
Congress would provide food, clothing, medical care, and education, with its greatest success being that it taught more than 200,000 blacks how to read.
Armed with an education, freemen now had the tools to be productive members of a segregated society. Another piece of legislation passed by the Republican majority was the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Although President Johnson tried to veto the act due to his loyalty to the planter class of the South, it passed with a two-thirds majority in Congress. The act was aimed at protecting the African American rights and striking down the black codes in the South. It stated that ex-Confederates could not take office. To prevent the bill from running out or becoming disqualified by the South, Congress took to making it the 14th Amendment, which had to be ratified for readmittance.
As President of the United States, I believe that this bill will only cause unnecessary conflict with our Southern brothers. It is time to let the events occurring run their course, and further interference will only have negative effects.
Even after his veto, Johnson's power was of no match for a Republican-dominated Congress. Once signed into law, it provided yet another form of protection for African Americans.
It wasn't foolproof, however, which is shown through the South's adoption of the black codes. White Southerners were determined to keep the African Americans in their place, socially, politically, and economically, and they saw the black codes as a way to do this. The laws were designed to regulate the affairs of the emancipated blacks and ensure a stable and subservient labor force.
Slaves were systematically trapped within a system that closely resembled slavery. It's like nothing really changed in the South, If a free man jumped his labor contract, he would be fined and then hired out to pay those fines, continuing the cycle. Now, if all of you guys will look under your chairs today, I brought you guys a special gift, the American pageant. I know you guys are going to love it. It's really going to teach us about African American history, history in general. I know you guys will love it, and just read it.
That book sucks!
With no money and nothing to offer but their work, thousands of impoverished former slaves became sharecroppers, farming for a pay that didn't cover what they needed to survive. Trapped by accumulating debt, there were little improvements to their condition over slavery. The North began to wonder if they had really won the Civil War after all.
Setback for African Americans was the results of the U.S. Supreme Court case Plessy v. Ferguson. In 1896, an African American named Plessy tried to sit in on an all-white rail car. He was arrested for violating Louisiana's law that provided for segregated, separate but equal railroad accommodations. A trial with Justice John Ferguson presiding, Plessy was found guilty on the grounds that the law was a reasonable exercise of the state's police powers.
A loss for Plessy meant that separate but equal segregation was legal in the United States. This decision would stay in effect until 1954, when it was overruled by Brown v. Board of Education.
The Compromise of 1877 ended Reconstruction. I mean the official end of Reconstruction. It pulled military units out of the South. It created an electoral commission consisting of 15 men from the Senate, House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court. This commission had to rule on the Electoral Count Act, which went to 8-7 in the favor of the Republicans. Now, let me give you a little example. Where is it? Hold on. Here it is. So, the Democrats in Congress, they smelled defeat. They knew it was there, and they knew it.
I have a letter from Washington.
Oh, says we're supposed to leave now. See you, Joe. So, although the Compromise of 1877 had happened and all the military leaders were removed from the South, this didn't really mean that things got any better for African Americans. They were pretty much just treated really poorly. And a guy named Booker T. Washington, he decided to do something about it, which I personally don't really think has helped him at all. It's called the Atlanta Compromise, and it was an agreement reached in 1895. It was never written down, but it was between African Americans and white Southern leaders. And basically, blacks would receive basic education and due process of law in exchange for not asking for equality or justice from the white Southerners. So I really do think that the blacks of the South got the poor end of this agreement.
Issues involving emancipated blacks in the South were continuing, but at the same time, corruption was rampant in the North. What railroad should we make?
You know, I'm really thinking the Transcontinental Railroad. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So, how long do you think we should make this railroad? Maybe like from here to here?
Nah, we should make it like this.
So, Joe, how much do you think you can pay us for that?
Well, how about this much?
You know what, Joe? I think we deserve more than that. How about we just split this? Call it a day.
Is that even legal?
The Electoral Count Act, which went 8-7 in favor of the Republicans. Let me give you an example out of my bag of tricks. So,
Why did the gun fall?
redo it, stop.
So, that was all the concepts. We're done.
Okay.
Still has makeup on. Joe is still being
doing-
extremely productive. And here's this.